And so when
Mhm.
you look at horror novels or horror, even horror movies, they say that's usually a reflection of what's going on at the time.
Mhm.
But what's popular right now and what people are generally drawn to is elevated horror. And some people don't quite know what that means. Do you want to share what elevated horror means to you and in your writings?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think elevated horror is something that doesn't hit you over the head with its message. It maybe cloaks it in some allegory. It maybe has more kind of beautiful language, more literary writing, and just something that doesn't put things in your face. The monster might not be, somebody in a mask. It's not going to be somebody, wielding a knife and running after you. It's going to be a little bit different than that, and it's going to make you think so that you can reflect back and think to yourself, oh, that's what that meant. It might not come to you right away.
So, my favorite book of yours, and you have three published books, and you're working on your fourth, which is so exciting. And I bet within the next 10 years, you'll probably have like over a dozen books.
I hope so.
Maybe like pushing 20 books because you're so prolific, which I love. So my favorite book of yours, Much Too Vulgar, which
Woo.
I love, I would say is definitely elevated. Do you want to share a little bit about your book?
Sure. So, Much Too Vulgar is about a rather disturbed pre-med student named Keely. And when she doesn't get into this prestigious research program, she kind of takes matters into her own hands and thinks, I'll show them and I will do anything I can to eliminate my competition. So she's a little bit creepy. She's not somebody you necessarily like, but if I've done my job right, then she's somebody that you will find yourself sympathizing with.
Was she inspired by anyone you know?
Okay, this is gonna sound weird, but me, I mean, I'm a nice person, but I just gave her all of my mean thoughts. Every time somebody has been mean to me and I've thought, I really wish I could just do this, but of course I'm not going to, I had her do that thing.
All right, so but she has a very dysfunctional relationship with her mother.
Mhm.
You say, I mean, your relationship with your mom sounds pretty solid.
Oh
So,
yeah, my mom and I have a great relationship. I like to explore different kinds of relationships. I mean, that's why we read. That's why we explore so many different things because I want to know an experience that isn't mine and see if I can inhabit it and make it come to life. And hopefully I did.
well, I think it's a really disturbing, terrifying book that's actually
Yeah.
really draws you in. I think a lot of people can really resonate with the character because people get fucked over a
All
lot,
the time.
right? And how do you take matters into your own hands? And what's just so interesting, and you know, I did not want to talk politics, and I'm not going to talk politics, but I think it's so important for people to think and to really kind of know that they have the power to take things into their own hands, which your character Keely does in this book. It may not
Mhm.
be by the book, but she's at least thinking in those lines. So I think
Mhm.
anyone who reads, it's always opens up a new channel. Now, you have your latest book is The Rotting Room, which is
Yes.
completely different than Much Too Vulgar. How did you get into that genre?
Well, so as with all of my inspiration, it comes from just observing the world around me, reading news articles, finding weird stuff. And with The Rotting Room, I read an article about the Poor Clares of Ischia, Italy. They were a 17th century Spanish, or they were a 17th century group of nuns, and they had this ritual where when one of their nuns died, they would place her in a room called a putridarium, which was lined with holes. So it was a bench with holes. They would put the body there. The body would decompose. They would take the bones and put them in the ossuary. And I thought this was very gruesome. And I knew there was a story in there, so I just had to figure out what it was. So I based The Rotting Room on some very real history, but of course made it more gruesome.
What is it about gruesomeness that attracts you as a writer?
I think I am terrified of that. I have a very strong disgust response. And even though I have a background in epidemiology and science, I was attracted to that because I'm a germaphobe. It's kind of a know your enemy situation. And because body horror grosses me out so much, when I write it, it doesn't scare me. It doesn't gross me out. So it's a way of kind of grappling with my fear and overcoming it in a way.
So if you were to see it on a movie or in a movie, how would that make you feel then?
It depends. If it's really, really good, special effects where it looks real, it disgusts me, but I love those practical effects where you can kind of tell that it's not quite real. Like I loved the substance, love the thing. So it really depends on how well it's executed. If my brain thinks that it looks too real, then I will be disgusted.
Okay, the thing was pretty disgusting. That
It
was
was
that was really disturbing, and that's an older film too. Um,
one of my favorites.
is there a newer? Okay, The Substance is relatively new. Are there any films out right now that you are drawn to that's in the horror genre?
Oof.
Or-
I unfortunately, because I have two kids under the age of 4, I don't get out as much as I would like. I loved, loved, loved The Substance, and I'm trying to think if there are any recent ones I've seen that had that kind of effect. And I don't know, you probably have seen more than I have.
Well, it's crazy. Even though I write horror in my screenplays, I'm a chicken. When I see it in a movie, I get scared to death. I mean, I even co-wrote a horror thriller. I couldn't watch the rough cut of it. I got and there were some pretty gruesome scenes. I couldn't do. I can write it and read it, but I just but it was so crazy. So I've been doing these TikTok lives, and I want to have you on as a guest because I absolutely adore you. Um, I read 3 short stories by the Grimm brothers. Now the Grimm brothers were the 1800s, right? And the themes are universal. I mean, they still apply to now. And so I really got me thinking about these horror concepts. Why are we drawn to horror? What is it that we can't put it down? Is it, and someone said, oh, it's evil, stay away from that. But I'm thinking that there's some pretty scary stories in the Bible, like terrifying stories in the Bible. So what is this that you think that we're attracted to by being scared?
I have thought about this a lot, and I'm so glad you asked that question. Just today, I was listening to a scientific piece about our disgust response, and the author was likening disgust to watching horror movies because it's something we do because we can experience that fear in a safe environment. You can watch the movie and know that you can turn it off at any time, and it allows us to explore something that we have kind of an reaction to
Right.
safely and securely. And I think that's really powerful because then we also know this is something I can handle. I don't have to, but I can. And I find that very empowering.
Right, right. You have the choice to turn off if you don't want to watch it. Now, do you think possibly it's a way of desensitizing people with your horror?
That's interesting. Honestly, I feel like it's the opposite response. I feel like horror is one of the best vehicles to build empathy and to understand other people. I mean, even in Much Too Vulgar, people come away from that saying, I didn't want to like her, but I could feel for her. I could understand her. So I think rather than desensitizing, it actually sensitizes you to things.
Right? So maybe make different choices based on what they've read or
Yeah.
experienced through fiction.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So there are so many different types of horror, and I think I know a lot of movies from the 80s, and I'm referencing movies a lot because I write screenplays, and I love movies, but I'm starting to read a lot more horror books thanks to you. I'm getting a lot
Woo.
more good. But there are like a lot of different types of genres. You have your horror gore and your jump scare horror. Um, what? Okay, your work seems very elevated, which I love. Do
Thank
you
you.
think it can be interwoven together, this elevated with the jump scares, or cross sectioning these genres and having subsections? Or do you think that gets too confusing for the reader or the viewer?
Oh, I think they can be blended in so many different ways. I think horror is so diverse because of all the subgenres, and I think it's fun to mix them. I think that's way more interesting to see how could I do a jump scare in an elevated way? How could I do body horror in an elevated way? I think that's a fun challenge as a writer and something a fun treat as a reader.
What is your favorite kind of horror genre? Because your 3 books are so different. The Alligator Room, completely different than Much Too Vulgar, completely different than The Rotting Room. What's your
I I don't really have an answer for that because I'll read pretty much anything and I just am drawn to the story, not necessarily the genre, but is there something in a story that resonates with me and that I feel like I can put my mark on? So they're so different because that's just the story that I'm attracted to and I just don't have a better answer than that. It's what keeps me up at night and starts writing itself in my head and says it's time right now.
Oh, I love that. And it should be about the story. I,
Mhm.
I agree with that completely. I had I had a woman tell me, because I'm working on a novel, and
Oh,
you kind of partially inspired that too. You know, you kind of helped motivate me into that. And she asked me, "Is this a feminist book?" I'm like, "No, it's not." You know, because my protagonist is female, and she goes through all these different obstacles, and she goes, "Well, it should be." I'm like, "No, it doesn't have to be. You know, it's about the story." You know, and
mhm.
I think when you start putting labels on stuff, people categorize it and instantly judge it. You know, and I think we really need to focus on story. And I think, okay, people think horror, they instantly judge it. But you start, like, again, going back to the Bible. And what's interesting, Much Too Vulgar and Rotting Room have these undertones of religion because
Mhm.
Much Too Vulgar set in Georgetown, which you happen to go to.
I did.
Okay, and what was that like, going to Georgetown, a Jesuit school, and writing about it? Did you get any kind of pushback or?
Not yet. Actually, Georgetown stocks Much Too Vulgar in their bookstore, which is very exciting. And when I was on campus, I mean, everybody knew about the legacy of The Exorcist. We watched it every Halloween. I saw the stairs and everything. And I actually even made friends with the priest who lived on my floor in my dorm. And I had him come to my house and I asked him all about, his adventures in, getting rid of ghosts and exorcisms and all that. I made him devil's food cupcakes, which was very fun. And he gave me a lot of inspiration for, I mean, that's what scares me. Demons, possession, religious horror. I find that terrifying. So obviously, it's something that keeps creeping its way back into my books.
So, did you ever experience or witness an exorcism? Because you mentioned that in the Much Too Vulgar also.
I have never witnessed an exorcism. That's something I hope never to witness, actually, but I have had ghostly experiences.
Really? Do you want to share one of those experiences?
Sure. So I live in Savannah, which is the most haunted place in America. And I was on a ghost tour, and we were at the Sorrel Weed House, which is one of the scariest houses in Savannah. And I just snapped a photo of the carriage house, which was undergoing renovations. And when I looked at the picture later, you can clearly see in the window two eyes and an outline. And there was nothing in there. I didn't even have a second floor at the time. It was completely gutted. And they later told me that that's where somebody had hung themselves. So since then, I mean, I've always believed in ghosts, but I was like, now I've got some proof.
Okay. Have you seen the Conjuring series?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I mean, that kind of deals with ghosts and possession,
Mhm.
that whole thing, right? Okay.
Yeah, the first Conjuring movie I loved, and I also liked the second. I haven't had a chance to see the others in the franchise, but yeah, I really like those movies.
The last one's out right now. I did not
Yeah.
realize until recently that's all based on true stories, on a true
Yeah.
death, which kind of makes it a little scarier. But see, they say, everything reflects our times now,
Mhm.
right? So is there anything you've ever written that is just like so far-fetched out of your realm of who you are and what you know? And it doesn't have to be published, like one of your short stories or something you've written in the past.
I mean, the Rotting Room was very far outside of my realm of experience. Besides being historical, it's also about Catholic nuns. I'm not Catholic, was not raised Catholic. I'm obviously not a nun, and I haven't lived in, the 17th century. So that I had to do a ton of research for it, and I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. My upcoming novels also have involved research, but they're a little bit closer to who I am as a person.
Do you want to talk about your upcoming novel?
Sure. Okay, so the next one coming out, it's coming out on January 28th. It's called A Veritable Household Pet, and it's about a girl who gets a lobotomy at the age of 11. And then it's about her story and also her sister who acts as her caretaker and kind of the scribe of her story. And I don't want to give away spoilers because this one has a enormous twist at the end. And I'm really excited about it. I did a lot of research for it. It takes place in the 60s and 70s mostly. It was super fun to write. And yeah, I loved it. It's with my cover designer now, so we'll see what he comes back with.
Now, was that based on someone you know or a story you had heard, or how did you come up with that concept?
So I read a book called My Lobotomy by Howard Dully, and it's a memoir, it's nonfiction, and it's about this boy who got a lobotomy at the age of 12. So before people say, that that's not possible, that didn't happen, it did happen. And he wrote this memoir about how his life was affected by what happened to him as a kid, and I found that so horrifying. I know people might think that this upcoming book isn't really, really scary, but I find lobotomies horrifying. So it really just inspired me. And again, I don't want to give spoilers, but there's a very big twist that makes sense if you've read my other books.
And you have great twists. You have
Thank you.
amazing twists. Now I just need to read the alligator room. So need to get that one. So what exactly? Okay, a lobotomy. I thought you couldn't function at all. You're alive, but you just can't really function. Like you're a
It
vegetable.
depends, because I mean, the way it works is, not to be gruesome, but they stick an ice pick through your eye socket and they kind of wiggle it around. And there's not really a lot of science or exactitude to it. So you might come out of it and be okay, or you might come out of it and never be okay again. And there's not really an easy way to predict. So, yeah, I mean, it just really depends on the person. And they've even found that sometimes if you get the lobotomy as a child, your brain is, young enough that it can kind of grow around the damage and you can still be functional, but that's not always the case. So there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to it.
You know, they came up with lobotomies to pretty much control people, right? That was the whole purpose of it.
It was to help with mental illness, and also there were so many people in mental institutions that they were overflowing, and they thought if we do this procedure, it's quick, it's easy, and then people can go home. They don't have to be in this institution. But it wasn't always the case.
Right. Wow. Okay. And so you have a 9-year-old girl, you said? 11-year-old girl.
In the book, yeah, she gets her lobotomy when she's 11.
Wow. Okay. That'd be curious to read just as to why they would choose to, her parents would choose to do that. What were the circumstances? Okay, that sounds very intriguing. Okay.
Thank you. I think it's probably one of my best things I've ever written. I really love it. It's not traditionally scary. It doesn't have the jump scares. It's a little bit more literary, but yeah, I love it. I think it's horrifying.
Well, yeah, it sounds, I think anytime you get into mental illness, there's always that scare factor because it's so unpredictable,
Yeah.
and the unpredictability kind of freaks people out because they want
Mhm.
to know what's coming, even though they don't want to know what's coming. We are
Mhm.
so weird as people, aren't we? We're
Yes.
so weird. All right, so now that you have this book out, I know you're constantly thinking of ideas. Are you already thinking of your next book?
I have my entire publication schedule for next year ready. I've got Household Pet coming out on the 20th of January, and then I'm almost done with my one that will come out next fall, and it is called Ripped Up the Middle in Two, and it's about, okay, this one's very different. It's about a postpartum mom who has a 3-month-old, and she starts thinking that there might be some evil presence that lives in the woods that wants her baby. It's
Ooh,
kind of like a cross between Rumpelstiltskin and Night Bitch.
wow.
And yeah, it's when you were speaking of the Grimm's fairy tales earlier, it's kind of got that flavor to it. So
Okay.
that one's extremely personal to me.
Wow. Okay. Well, and your mom too. So,
Yeah.
you know, then that adds a whole other element to it. Being a mom is like, I think we're capable of anything. You know,
Yes,
it's like, don't mess with our babies. You know what I mean?
exactly.
It's like we will turn into mama bears you don't want to deal with.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
That sounds really intriguing. Really. So, do you have some magical elements like Grimm Brothers, or is it pretty much all reality based?
It's a bit more supernatural,
Okay.
but again, I love an unreliable narrator, and that's what we've got. So a lot of it is left up for you to decide.
And you still do your podcast? Um,
Yes, my Horror Humor Hunger podcast is still going strong. I'm about to finish with season 7, which was kind of all about the rotting room, and then I'll move on. I'll probably take a hiatus over the holidays and start it back up in January.
it's like, oh my God, we're already in the holidays.
I
It's
know, it's crazy.
past, once Labor Day's over, it's like it's done. It's
Mhm.
like we're there.
Mhm.
That's so very exciting. All right, so and you're still writing short stories, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
and tell me what your process is as a writer, having 2 little kids. You're running a household, and you have a job too, right? Or
Mhm. Yeah,
okay,
I do healthcare content writing on the side.
okay. So what's a normal day for you?
Well, my son recently started daycare, so now I have a lot more time than I did when I was writing all of these other books. But a typical day for me is I walk my dog, his name is Tater Tot, and get some fresh air, and then I write most of the morning, or as a self-published writer, a lot of that is marketing too. So talking about labels and books and how we have to kind of pigeonhole them, that's part of marketing too. So I've grown a little bit more comfortable with the labels like this is feminine rage or this is psychological horror. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. But I spend a lot of time doing that and then coming up with ideas for new stuff. I typically, if I'm working on a book, I'll work on one per day so I don't get the narratives confused. And yeah, I spend a lot of time researching, doing the writing, doing the editing, reading it again, writing it again.
So does your brain ever shut off with story, or is it 24/7?
It kind of feels like 24/7 because even though I have all next year pretty much figured out, I have documents with notes for the two after that. and then a notebook full of ideas for all the ones after that. And I keep coming up with new ones, which is a great problem to have.
I love it. I love it. Well, what's so great is you're doing it. You know, you're
Thanks.
not making excuses. And I think people like the idea of like, oh, I'm going to write a book, but they never do it. They never get started. And when we first met, I was working on a book with a woman, her memoir, and I had always thought about writing this story I had in I swear it was like with me for like years, like before COVID, like a long, long time. And you inspired me to really just do it. It's like, well, why
Yay.
not? You don't have to have permission from anyone to do it. If you have an idea or a passion to do something, you just do it. And it's so funny because you have these people who's like, no, you can't. You have to do it this way. It's like, no, I don't have to, you know,
Hmm.
and you just do it. So I'm very proud of you, and
Thank you.
you're inspiring to other people, and not just women, but men too, because men think, well, I can't because blah, 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 just freaking do it. Okay.
Hmm.
So what is the scariest thing to you now that we're in spooky season? What scares you the most?
So a lot of my books, I've realized the thing that keeps coming back to, the scariest element is being trapped in some way. Whether that's being trapped in a situation, trapped in a body, trapped by a monster. That's something that really terrifies me, which is part of the reason I don't like demons or possession, because that's something that's invaded you and you are trapped and you can't get out unless somebody can help you. So it's not necessarily claustrophobia, just feeling like your own free will is gone and there's nothing you can do about
That that's terrifying. Yeah.
it.
And that's actually very relevant right now, which makes
Mhm.
it even more terrifying. So yeah, thinking is definitely a good thing. Being vocal is definitely a good thing. Being intelligent is definitely a good thing. Reading books is definitely a great thing.
Yes.
No, and your book is going to become an Audible soon, right? Much Too Vulgar.
Yes, Much Too Vulgar and The Rotting Room are both in audio production right now. I think Much Too Vulgar will be available in November, and then The Rotting Room probably in January.
Okay, and people can find those where?
They will be available on all audiobook platforms, including Audible, and I'll have a lot more information as soon as they're ready.
I think what's great about books is by having Audible, people can listen to them in the car or when they're doing other things, and they still want to know what the book's about. So I think that's great. They can have that option and still get that information out, which is awesome.
Yeah. I love an audiobook. I listen to audiobooks all the time.
So, what are your favorite books to listen to or read?
So for audiobooks, I really only like nonfiction. I find it's just easier for me to absorb and pay attention. And if I, zone out for a second, I haven't missed everything or a major plot point. So I love memoirs. I love hidden histories. I love sciencey books. And then for reading, I read a lot of horror, but I will read anything anybody recommends me. I read nonfiction. I read literary fiction. I read a little bit of everything.
Oh, that's great. I think that's wonderful that you do that. All right. So do you share your horror books with your kids? I mean, they're still really little, but I'm sure they see it around the house. Did they ever ask you about it or?
Oh yeah, my son doesn't understand it yet, but my daughter knows all the titles of my books, is very interested. She loves scary stuff. And then I've got two nieces who are a little bit older, who we were on a family trip and they cornered me and asked them to explain the plot of everything I've ever written or had ever thought about writing. And when I asked them, I was like, "Is this going to give you guys nightmares?" They were like, "No, we only have good nightmares." So, yeah, I loved that.
What's a good nightmare?
I don't know, but I want to have that.
That's kind of kids. I love it.
Hmm.
Come up with that's so amazing. Okay, so I well, I'm excited because you're coming to LA.
Yay!
And I have to do a shameless pitch for myself because I co-wrote the record, and I'm so glad you're going to be coming to the red carpet screening. So I'm so excited to, and I would love to be able to get your opinion of the movie after you see it. And yes, I want you to be brutally honest.
Oh boy.
It's like, and that's okay because it, the record is like okay, it's a high testosterone film, but there's a character named Jasmine who's a total badass. you know,
Awesome.
and I contributed to that. I mean, I contribute to the whole story. And then there's another woman who's like the complete opposite of her.
Ooh.
So I would love to get your take. And and all these guys are, they're focusing on the fight scenes and the truck and like the but there are elements in there that, it's like, huh. So I would love to get your take on that, after you see the movie.
Yes, I am so excited. So
I'm
excited.
so glad you're going to be coming to it. So, and I put it out there to viewers. If whoever reaches out to me, if you're going to be in LA on the 23rd, you have to reach out to me though. I will get you 2 tickets. Now this is, so it's like, hey, I'm putting it out there. It's like no one's reached out yet. It's like, well, I guess because a lot of people are not going to be in LA, but it's like, hey, so I'm putting it out there, and I want people to meet you because you're this incredible writer. Your books are so engaging. I think they're so visual. I want to see them on the big screen. I think people will really resonate with them, and I think people love and then watching the movie, and then they love making the comparisons. They love talking. It's like, well, that wasn't in the movie, or that. I mean, they love that.
I love doing that. It's so much fun.
Right? And that makes such a fun dialogue. So, we shall see, because I would love to see Much Too Vulgar made into a movie so we can have a dialogue about what the differences are with the book and invite people to discuss with us. So I'm putting that out into the universe.
Me too. Out
Okay.
into the universe.
All right. So, how are you going to be celebrating Halloween?
So, normally my mom designs all of our family costumes, but this year I was inspired by the cover of one of my own books. So, The Rotting Room, all you have to do is look at that cover and you will know how I will be celebrating Halloween.
Okay. And how are you going to dress up the kids?
They're going to be little devils. So, I will be Sister Raffaella. My husband will be Father Bruno. The kids will be the devils. They barely need costumes. It's going to be great.
That's great. So, do they go trick or treating?
Oh, yes, we go trick-or-treating, and we're also going trick-or-treating at a zoo near us. So we're going to get lots and lots of candy.
Nice. Okay.
That's always great.
Right. That sounds like it. So, how long does the candy last? Does it, do you end up giving most of it away, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It only lasts as long as, they go to bed and the candy disappears.
Right. That's exciting. That's very exciting. Well, I'm very excited to see you, and I'm very excited. I want people to read your books. That we have The Rotting Room, we have The Alligator Room, we have Much Too Vulgar, we have your upcoming book in January. We'll definitely have to get together and do a TikTok live for your upcoming book.
Would love that.
Maybe, do you think maybe we can get you to read a couple of pages of
Sure.
the upcoming book? That would be so awesome.
I can totally do that.
Then maybe too, if we do a TikTok live, can I get you to read a couple of pages from Much Too Vulgar?
Absolutely.
There, there are some really juicy pages in there too.
Yes, there are. There are.
I
It's
think
a fun one.
And I would invite, people to jump on TikTok, say, hey, if you have any questions, you'll be there to answer them, engage and see what people want to read. And I think they're just going to love you. They're just going
Thank
to love
you.
you. So I'm very excited.
Me
Well,
too.
thank you so very much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. And I'm just like, I can't wait to see you.
I am so, so beyond excited. Like, this is going to be the most glamorous thing I have ever done. It's
Right.
going to be great.
All right. No. Okay. So when I found out you're coming, I got so excited. I started calling all these bookstores. Yes. It's like, you guys have to have Viggy. And okay, maybe it wasn't enough lead time. One bookstore said, yes, let's do it. I got so excited. I reached out to you. Then he sends me an email the next day. No, we can't do it. I'm not going to be there. My partner said no. I'm like, well, okay, this would have been nice if you told me that beforehand. And I said, okay, well, let's meet. I'll go meet you anyway. Let's just meet. Then he responds, look, I said no. I'm like, okay, there's a horror story in here. It's like, huh. But anyway, but I come to find out he wasn't going to be working that day. His partner pretty much didn't want to deal with extra stuff to do. And I'm like, well, I'll meet him. He doesn't want to meet you. I mean, I'm like, okay, people are stressed out right now, whatever, and it's like, but I want you to meet people when you're here, and you're going to
Yeah.
do that at the screening. And I want people, and I think as independent filmmakers and writers, as independent creatives, you have to take initiative yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, all right, so we just come up in a way. And I think what's so interesting, it seems like these times are really calling for people to stand up for themselves and not really depend on anyone to do anything for them.
Totally.
Pretty much on so many levels. And so yeah, I'm very excited you're coming, and I look
Me
forward
too.
to meeting you in person. And I will put out there, people, if you want to meet Viggy Parr Hampton, the incredible author of these great books that are truly terrifying and psychologically, poignant to the heart, where it really makes you think, let me know, and we'll see if we can't get you a signed copy of your book. So it's like, yeah, just we got to reach out to us, because social media is going to be the way of really of us coming together and making things happen.
It's true.
Anyway, Viggy, you are amazing. I love you. Your books are so incredible. I'm so proud of you. You are an inspiration. Just keep
Thank you.
your most awesome self. Yeah. And yes, let's definitely do a TikTok live before Halloween if we can do that. And I would
Yeah.
love to, really reach out and ask you questions, and let's just get the party started.
That sounds awesome.
Great. All right. Well, I will see you on you're coming in on the 22nd, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So what time, I meant to ask you, what time is the screening on the 23rd?
It starts at 7, so you'll probably want to be there about 6, maybe 5.
Be there at 6. Okay.
Yeah, maybe 5:30. Yeah.
Okay. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm actually not that surprised that they didn't want to do a signing, just because I've tried to do that at bookstores around here, and they're just kind of like, nah, even though they stock my books and they like me, they just don't think they're gonna get that many people, and they don't want it to be weird.
They don't know the power of marketing.
One day they will be asking me.
But I think with social media the way it is, and doing our lives and just building, and so I think we just have to take it into our own hands.
Totally.
So anyway, but there is a bookstore downtown LA called The Last Bookstore.
Yeah,
That's huge. It's there are tunnels made of books. So
that's cool.
I think that section is haunted. There's an area where they have like original artwork up to, and but you will just feel the energy shift if you go walking through it. And they have a whole section on Lovecraft,
Uh-huh.
whole section, and it's like you almost feel like the energy pulsating through the books, like, come here, come here.
That's
So if
awesome.
you get a chance while you're here, I suggest you go there. It's the last bookstore, downtown LA. It's
I'm
just
writing that down.
it was made out of an old bank building,
Cool.
and it's like there's definitely a really wonky energy there, and they have like every kind of book imaginable, which would be,
Cool. Awesome.
I hope you get a chance to see some of Los Angeles.
Me too, because I've never been. So I was like, Ryan, we're doing the Walk of Fame. We're doing all the touristy stuff.
Right.
And yeah, and then we'll see what else we can come up with.
Yeah, the last bookstore, just because you kind of like spooky stuff,
Yeah, I do.
that one area, and if you go there, you'll know what I mean. The energy just like shifts. It's like it's like almost like it gets cold, and it just
Ooh,
you feel it, and that.
awesome. You can find me. I'm very active on Instagram and TikTok at Viggy Parr Hampton. My website is viggyhampton.com. And if you reach out to me, you can always purchase signed copies directly from me.
Oh, I like that. Now, how about your podcast? How often, where can
Oh,
people?
yes. So my podcast is Horror Humor Hunger. It's available on all podcast platforms. And when I'm doing a season, I post episodes every week on Tuesdays.
Oh, nice. All right, and talk about your recipes. I almost forgot all about
Oh
that.
yes, the hunger part of Horror Humor Hunger. So each season is kind of organized around a book of mine, and then at the end of the season we have a recipe based on that book. So the Rotting Room recipe should be coming up in about 2 weeks. So I don't know how many people will be appetized by that, but I'm very excited for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Viggy. I appreciate you so very much, and I will see you in person and live very soon.
Woohoo! Awesome.